I think I'm going to start with you, Gemma. I'd love you to answer the question or discuss how it is that a philanthropic organisation gets its head around impact investing, and what was your decision making around making this investment?
I think you just jump in. I can only speak from my experience, but when we first started impact investing, probably about 7 or 8 years ago, we had no experience. But we decided it made sense to us philosophically and intuitively. So we learnt from others and we just started making investments. And I think until you start making investments, it's really hard to learn. And so my advice would be to initially to just give it a go. The decision to invest in this fund was an easy one based on our experience with good return. We've been recycling a no interest $100,000 loan with good return for about 3 or 4 years now, and the impact that keeps delivering, the social impact, is extraordinary. And so when Shane called and said, we're launching this fund, would you mind just rolling over again? It was an easy decision because of the extraordinary social impact we know that good return can deliver.
I think we've seen in Australia, it's been the family offices and the high net worths who've kind of led the way on impact investing. And Gemma, this is, I'm just putting you on notice that this is a question for you. You know, representing a PAF, why is it that PAFs and foundations, whose very existence is to drive specific missions, usually in the social and environmental impact spaces, why do you think some of them have been slow to consider investing corpus in a way that so clearly aligns with their philanthropic values?
First of all, I think we're seeing an increase in foundations and PAFs investing in impact investing, and I think it's probably hasn't grown as quickly as we'd all like to see, but I do think there is growth, and I think we'll continue to see growth. I think there are a few areas. I think there's quite a famous investing continuum where you go from grant money to traditional investment, and impact investing kind of sits somewhere along that continuum. I think the expectation of people seeking capital is that foundations are more likely to invest because it's mission aligned and program aligned. But the closer you get towards that grant end of the spectrum, the more competitive and more compelling your social or environmental returns have to be, because you're competing with monies that are directly driving social impact. So when you're competing with grant money, while the financial return isn't necessarily important, or certainly not as important, what is important is really clear, measurable social or environmental impacts. And I don't think there's a lot, there hasn't been a lot, and we're getting much better at it, but there's not a lot of product available that can clearly articulate social and or environmental return. And one of the reasons why this fund is so compelling is that those social returns are so clearly articulated, and impact investment makes so much sense in this scenario because this is the core skill set of good return, and it makes a lot of sense of what their core mission is in driving financial literacy and driving access to capital in developing markets. I think the sector, like the closer you get to kind of the traditional impact investment end, where you're driving high financial return with a secondary benefit of social or environmental return, I think you've seen that market grow more quickly because it's much more aligned to what the corpus is traditionally supposed to do, which is deliver a financial return so you can grant more money. So I think like that's one that not necessarily confusion, but that competing for funds is one of the barriers. I don't think there's an expertise in the philanthropic sector around how to do impact investing, how to measure the social impact or the environmental impact. I also think there's confusion around fiduciary duty, and sometimes that's kind of held up as, oh, we can't invest in that because it's not enough fiduciary duty. And then you'll say, what is your fiduciary duty? Oh, I don't know, but I can't do it. So I think there's a fear of the unknown. So I think there's quite a few barriers that have stopped PAFs investing their corpus, and some of the legislative framework which is starting to shift under PAF guidelines or has shifted, but there needs to be growing awareness of what you actually can and can't do.
Great.